Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. You have to excuse the audio here. I'm using my Canon, so I can't remember exactly how the audio sounds on it. But to cut right to the chase here, in this video we're going to be talking about my next sketchbook tour here. So, in this sketchbook, it's about roughly 11 by 14. It's in very rough condition, as you'll see. The pages themselves are a little warped from all of the stuff that I glued into it and all the things that I've made with it, or put inside of it at least. There's a couple of quick disclaimers about this. I kind of cheated on this sketchbook creation because with this one, I felt like with a lot of the projects that I have been showing on my Instagram feed, or a lot of the projects that I have kind of developed are either old recycled pieces or pieces that I've done in the past, or I keep kind of having to with the way that I produce things, I work kind of slow, so I keep having to go back and constantly revisit certain things, and I'm kind of wanting to get away from that. I'd like to be able to take what I know now and kind of make a solid step forward. So this is going to be kind of a cheating sort of sketchbook tour, but anything that you'll see in the future from here on out in terms of a sketchbook tour will be completely new. I think I'm going to make it to the point where I probably won't even take photos of the sketchbook at all, so that maybe I might be able to use it in like a Patreon thing or a video here, and it'll be completely fresh and it won't be anything that that has been seen before. And you'll have to excuse me here because you'll probably hear me breathing pretty heavily. But I'm kind of tired out here. Excuse me, because I'm like awfully close to the camera right now with the setup that I have here. So you might hear me breathing. I hope not, but that's just the nature of this right now. But anyway, here goes nothing. So I'm going to explain here that with the book itself, the paper quality wasn't the best. I think I bought this off of like a Barnes & Noble shelf. But as far as the paper itself went, it was like originally intended to be like a sketchbook. I wasn't really too concerned with the quality of the paper. But as you can see here with a close-up, I did like kind of a swatch of each of the material that I would have potentially have used in it. And amongst it is pencil, charcoal, watercolor pencil, watercolor paint, sepia watercolor marker, micron pen, Copic marker, and I made a couple of notes down here. Just to quickly summarize it, like you can kind of see just by looking at it that the materials aren't behaving at all in the way that they're supposed to. With the paper quality, it was just kind of to be expected, but what kind of allowed me to just piece this thing together was the fact that I basically glued a lot of what I worked on into it. So that's kind of how I say how I've been cheating a little bit with it. I don't really think the notes say anything too like groundbreaking. It's not something I'd repurchase, I said, because I really would like to find a I'd really like to find a nice one in the future and be able to just work right onto the surface rather than having to piece things together. So we're gonna get started here. I hope this doesn't turn out to be a long one for you guys. I'm basically just making this on the fly. I didn't really make a script for this at all. So hopefully I get out everything that I wanted to explain in this one. So the sketchbook itself, like I said, it's like revisiting old things. You can see here that this page is all but just ripped because the binding is completely destroyed. I think I made a note somewhere that this book itself started in like 2015. Like I genuinely... Yeah, July 4th. Like I started out trying to just kind of rapid firing some sketchbooks in like 2015. This was like well before I decided to kind of do this again full time. But yeah, so anyway, with this here, this is kind of like a Mad Hatter sort of idea. This was one of the first drawings that I did in this book, and that's where I basically experimented with all the materials that I had. So basically anything that you'd see on the last page there. In this I used watercolor, I used colored pencil, I used regular pencil, I used a micron pen, and I even used like a metallic marker to make these polka dots on here. A lot of my earlier ideas, and as with anything, I basically just draw as to what's at the top of my head at the time. And if something comes of it, in terms of like how I lay things out in a sketchbook, if something comes of it and I like the idea, I might adapt it further. I might try to make like a project out of it itself. At least that's my method behind it, or my ideas behind it. So when I make things, I don't necessarily... There are times where I'm critical about it. I'm critical about what I put down, but there are other times where I basically, like a lot of the time with my sketchbook, I like to have fun, and I just come to it with the idea in mind that I'm going to put something down and just, you know, sort of create what comes to mind. So with this next one here, I like the idea of, actually the pieces here you can see are pieces that I realized that the paper quality wasn't what I wanted in terms of watercolor painting. So I ended up putting in glued pieces, and that's where I was like, oh, I can see where this sketchbook can go from here. As always, I try to like experiment with portraiture. I don't think I'm great at it, but I like the idea of just kind of taking some form of realism and kind of applying it to like this super fantastical sort of thing. And a lot of it's just kind of, like, I think the idea here was kind of a yarn ball, but then it kind of morphed into sort of an organic heart-looking piece, and just like weird clouds and veins, and kind of like me daydreaming almost too. This isn't a photo of me by any means. I was just kind of the idea of daydreaming and kind of like a life in the city in terms of like the cross between nature and a suburb, and almost like what I read from it now. I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but what I read from it now is almost like people being the life of, you know, people being the life of where they live, people being the life of the city, and the effect of, I might be reading too deep into this, but it looks like, you know, oil raining down with like, you know, kind of an environment sort of thing. I don't know. But as with a lot of things that I do, it usually stems from, you know, what little experience that I have, and kind of the relation that we have with our environments and nature itself. With this one here, I went straight colored pencil. I did put pen on top because I realized that the black colored pencil was just washed out. I tried the micron pen, or not the micron pen, I tried a ballpoint pen here to try to do the detail in the shadow. Even the ballpoint pen, I really wasn't too satisfied with this paper. The micron pen was okay, but when it came to drawing on even just pencil alone, I would stab through the surface of the paper. Like if I tried to press it all, the paper would rip. So the same was true with any form of wet media. If I put too much micron pen in one area, it would all but just shred. So I really didn't have an easy time with the surface of this, but I like the idea of playing with geometric shape. I like the idea of just kind of playing with abstraction. I'm not really like a master at it by any means. Like I really don't understand abstraction all that much, but I know that I do enjoy just seeing the fragmentation of space and layering things together to make it seem different in some way. I think that's kind of how a lot of people might take a step in that direction. They almost like take something completely different from what it is and then creating something new from it, I guess. This next one, I really don't know what I was thinking with it. I can see how there's like almost like a cereal bowl or a bowl of soup or something with like frogs swimming in a pond. Doesn't sound appetizing at all. I do kind of like the idea of that, like there's a cloud and rain pouring over with just like this kind of mobile setup. There's a cup of tea, and it's like a plant growing out of it, a valve. Like I said, a lot of these things don't really need to have, for me, they don't really need to have much meaning. A lot of it comes down to me just sitting down and being able to just work at my desk. So that's something I need to remember instead of overthinking things. Again, this is the idea of playing with a lot of texture and geometric shape. I like, and I made it in sort of like a fish. I like the idea of doing that, and I kind of want to do more projects like this in the future. Again, you'll probably recognize a lot of these from Instagram. These are all old projects up until like about halfway through and to the end there. There's like the more recent projects that I've done, but I just kind of wanted to lay all this out for you guys so you can see it. This here was kind of a representation of like, I think I even used a dip pen with the ink, and it was a mistake, and so I immediately went to just saturation with the Micron pen. I like the Micron pen. I actually miss just flat out drawing. It's been a while since I've sat down and just made a bunch of drawings with ink. I really need to get back to doing that. My Inktober process, or my attempt at Inktober, was kind of a failure, but I did a lot of projects that I didn't display during Inktober itself, but it might be one or two in here, maybe, but we'll see. So this next one, I really like this next one. Not in terms of the subject matter, but just the ink that I used. I used like a gold ink, and so it's like super lustrous, and I really loved that. Like if the paper was better, and I could think of like a better subject material, I think I would have done more with that in the sketchbook. But like I said, I'm going to look for something in the future that I can actually set things down and have it be nice. And again, sorry for this overall setup. It's not great. I do have a solution for it in the future, but anyway. So in this one, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a matter of putting down the material that I liked there, the gold ink, and then I just made Zenyatta from Overwatch because he was one of my favorite characters at the time. You'll see a lot more characters of Overwatch in here. And I probably should say, the reason why I don't make a lot of fan art and try to like sort of sell it is because I feel like there's a fine line between trying to just study material and trying to produce things with my own twist. Like, I feel like my philosophy has been like, if it's not my own character, I won't try to sell it in any way. But I don't know what the rules are for, you know, fan art in terms of YouTube. I think it's fine. But yeah, in the I think I've said it before, but in the future, for anybody interested, like, I do fan art, but I don't produce it to sell it. But I just kind of do this for like fun projects when I want to play with certain materials. But yeah, this one's Zenyatta. You can see his jaw's kind of upset, but anyway, a lot of these are quickly done, so I don't ever overthink them. I've been told that a lot of my characters are very creepy, and yes, this guy is super creep. Like, he's just Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall and what looks like a sketchy part of the neighborhood or something outside of a, I don't know, a public park or something. I do like the expression, despite how weird he looks. I like the colors. I basically glued, it's really not that complicated at all, but I was just kind of making a quick solution to an idea to see how it would look like on a page. Just so I was like, if I really was interested in making something stupid like Humpty Dumpty listening to music on a wall, and you know, it was just, I really, it was just kind of like putting things down as quick as possible. I really don't think about these things, and then when I really do put some things down, I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. There's no way I'd make that. So it's kind of cool showing these things because it's just kind of like a quick insight into some things that I do. I'm kind of a goofball. This next one is, I don't remember why I made this one, really. I do notice, though, that whenever I decide to draw like a city, I've been just making random, what seems like random shapes to make almost a language. And I realized that I did it here. I was looking over this just recently. I did it here, and then I did something else in another sketchbook somewhere where I was drawing like a city thing, and I was doing the same exact thing and making almost the same shapes. It was weird. It was like in my mind there's like a certain code of just textures and line to make what would seem like a language. It's kind of funny. But with this one, I wasn't really trying to be a stickler about point of view, like the depths and lines. Like, I basically was just like, a lot of the time when I put things down, it's not that I don't understand that it's not aligned properly with the point of view, with the field of depth. Like, I know I do that purposely sometimes, where I try to flatten an image and I make it really awkward and strange, in the sense that I try to play with the vanishing field there. I try to play with it a lot, but with this one, I don't remember the reasoning behind it. I think it's just that I missed drawing with just simple pencil after all those other projects at the time, so I was just kind of putting things down the best I could, but again, paper could have been better. I think this one was like reaching winter. I wasn't even like, this probably was the quickest one, one of the quickest ones I've done in this book. It really doesn't have any, to me it doesn't really have any value. I don't really enjoy this one at all. I just kind of was whatever, drawing things. This one here, this one is just a simple drawing. Again, I really don't know who would want to drink a cup of tea with a frog inside, but, you know, to each their own. And plus, it's like steaming, so I don't know why there's a frog in there. We're starting to reach more recent stuff now, I think. I remember being in my mother-in-law's backyard when I was drawing this one. I just kind of missed using pen. Again, geometric shape, texture. Playing with the idea of fantastical things with the play of like realism in some way. So I really think I should start making a series of projects like this that are more like in-depth and serious, instead of just kind of referencing them all the time. I think it might be a good idea. I really don't know. I forget what this one was even about. I doubt it was for... It seems like something like the Day of the Dead. Like, I think I eventually put it that way, like it was Halloween, but again, I really don't know what time of year any of these were, because it seems like I would just draw whatever came to mind, so I don't really quite remember what this one was for. This one was for a Diablo project I worked on. I was kind of playing with the idea, again, of trying to sell... I was trying to figure out a way of making things like selling fan art sort of thing, but I wasn't too comfortable with it, and I realized that, like, yes, it's fun to make things like this, like it's fun to work with it and kind of learn how to make new textures and new color choices, but it's good to, I think for me, it's good to study them and kind of put them down when I do see color choices. With here, it's kind of just blocked out, but like certain color choices I find that are actually interesting that I normally wouldn't ever think of using together. But this is, I think it might be Diablo 3, if I'm not mistaken. I never played him, but I just really thought it was a kind of a cool image itself too. It was pretty neat. This one here, ballpoint pen, just the idea of the average, you know, the average, it looks kind of like me here, but the average person just basically being lost in thought as they're walking down the street or whatever, you know, on their phone, listening to music or whatever. You know, I kind of crave, like, I want to make, I think every, I think every nerdy artist, like, kind of craves to make their own world or make their own kind of fantasy environment in some ways. Like, most at least, like, they like the idea, I don't know, of like Dungeons and Dragons sort of idea, or just making their own sort of storybook or something. At least I do, in terms of like trying to make an illustrative story. And I don't know, this is kind of the idea of just being lost in thought, walking down the street, and the clock tower has like some menacing figure up top. I don't know. I watched an anime during Halloween, I think, and I seen this. I think it was, is it Sister, the Witch's Academia or something? I just thought that her expression was pretty cool. Like, I like that she's just kind of melancholy. Reminds me of myself at times. This one here was a Christmas card idea. I totally regret not giving this Christmas card to that person, because she gave me an awesome one. Dre, if you're watching this, this was your Christmas card that I intended to give you, what was it, a year ago? And I'm so sorry, I'm a terrible friend, but this was the Widowmaker Christmas card that I was making there. The idea was just kind of Sombra jammed Christmas bulbs inside of her inside of her visor, and then her bow even just says Merry Christmas, cheers, and Merry Christmas, love, or whatever. But it's just the idea of her getting stuck in a chimney, and it was all Sombra's doing. I don't know. This one here was Anna. I used to like to play Anna too, because I just like the distance shooters, or being a sniper kind of thing. Just the overall reaction of realizing that you've pushed too far and the payload is actually being delivered, and you're just like, "Nani?" So, yeah, I was gonna make a whole thing regarding that, but then I was like, "Yeah, no," and I just cut it out and I put it in here real quick and hoped to come back to it, but I just realized it wasn't worth it in the end. This one here I put on Instagram. I think this is Opera Pink here. It's gouache. It's in a fantastic color. I love the highlighter pink. I love highlighter pink and highlighter yellow. My three favorite colors are here, like the cyan, the highlighter, almost like close as I could get to highlighter yellow, and then the super vibrant opera pink there. I think the date on this one here is actually, oh wow, it's almost a year ago, April 26, 2018. Oh my gosh. I really haven't made a lot of things in that time, jeez. This one here is, again, taking geometric shape and collage and kind of compounding it together to make something else. I liked the overall idea. I think I do want to make projects like this in the future where I start making more collage, even if it just means collaging things together and then drawing from them, and then creating images based on the collages that I make. So that way it's not like, I feel like it's taking, like, not only do I want to distance myself from other people's images, like even stock photos, I guess, like ideally I'd like to be able to make work based on the images that I find, and then from there building on that and then building something new from it, just so that it's like not completely original, because nothing's really original, I don't think, anymore, but just something that's kind of, you know, been translating it into something like this that is my own, you know. So anybody who's a fan of watercolor painting is a fan, seems to be a fan also most of the time, of Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli itself. This is a Castle in the Sky reference to the, I forget what they're called, but just the androids themselves, or the robots there. It's just kind of the clashing of the vibrant colors with each other, and collaging the cardstock from the previous image that I had left over, and I put the cyborg on top like that. I really like the looseness of the painting that I've done here. I realized that, like, I'm trying to I always think about my instructors at school, how I would spend hours on just painting one tiny little square, or just like a small portion of a painting, and I really wouldn't get anything done. And through practice on watercolor, I've been able to just kind of be loose, and with the looseness be able to create more texture, and then in turn make a more complex image just on relaxing and trying not to tighten up my grip on the paintbrush as much, you know. So that's something that I think you should practice if you're interested in any form of painting or drawing like that. That's a good tip to do, is just kind of take a step back and almost take the size of your brush, and just say you make a fine point, just say you use a fine point brush and you try to make as much detail as possible. Like if you're trying to just do a study, even just use 2 sizes up on your paintbrush just to try to see what you can come up with in terms of, you know, being more critical and creative. This was an experiment with watercolor pencils. I really like the color. I like the idea of finding geodes and different colored rocks sort of things, and having the minerals kind of crusting in between each other and the light shining through them. I just like the idea. It almost looks fantastical in a way too. I like the idea of making again, like I like the idea of making things that are almost like fantasy based for some reason. I think it's just because I've been a nerd my whole life and been raised on Final Fantasy and just been crazy about it, I guess. This actually wasn't my own idea. Just, I forget. I think it's on my Pinterest page. It was just the idea of, I saw like somebody did the exact same thing. It was like a paintbrush, except it was like lit up here and it had like something in the background. I forget what it was. But what I got from it was just the idea of, I think it's Copic marker too. What I got from it is just the idea of just how you can make your own world come to life with just a stroke kind of thing, you know, with just a paintbrush, which is pretty cool. So I've been really liking, it's weird, I've been really liking the texture of snails and slugs. I really enjoy how you can just about take any color and just any combination and just put it together and make them like bumpy and porous, and just the whole, like, there's a lot of lustrous elements to them, how you can make a lot of light shine through them, and I like that. I've been kind of making a lot of slugs lately, and I realized that in snails, but what can you do? So there's not a whole lot to say. There's like a terrarium inside his shell, rather than just the normal shell itself, and he's just growing plants out of him. So I thought it was pretty neat. With a lot of what I've been doing in terms of like trying to find things that are more catering to more what people want out of, you know, buying a print or whatever, I was playing with the idea of just, you know, going through and being like, well, what if I decide to make like a breed of each, you know, breed of the most common dogs and try to make something funny out of them. And this is like the Thorgy idea. I don't know if it's like a major meme or not, but I saw it somewhere. It was like Thorgy, and I thought it was funny. But again, it ties into like a commercial thing that I probably wouldn't buy into. But I don't know. I didn't like the idea. I don't like the idea of just kind of making things, like, to some degree I do, like, I understand. But I don't know if I like the idea of just kind of making things to, I don't know, cop-out is like too strong of a word, but you know what I mean, like kind of just making things, being like, ooh, I know somebody's gonna buy this. Like, I'd rather not buy into that. I'd rather make things to just make them, and then if somebody likes them, we can go from there. But yeah, I thought this was a cute idea, nonetheless. I thought it was really cool. This is kind of a funny little thing, and I think I actually would like to have a corgi someday, but who knows. I draw and paint a lot of hearts. I think and a lot of people, the brain and heart are usually the most reference organ in our bodies, but I find that I draw a lot of images that relate to hearts and minds, because either I'm always placing like more of a poetic meaning on top of them, or I just put like, I don't know, I'm always lost in my head, and I'm a very sensitive person. I have a lot of feelings. And so I just kind of did this here. I thought it was cool how it's more of a kind of like a fruit on a branch, I guess. I thought it was pretty neat. I like the idea of making the geometric shapes again and putting together certain colors, referencing the red and blue inside of your cardiovascular system there. Oh, I do. Oh, so here are some swatches from Inktober. I don't think I ever showed all of my Inktober things. I did the majority of Inktober back in October, but I did some good things, but in the end it didn't really turn out to be anything great. I didn't really think it was worth blowing up my Instagram feed over things that I was just studying. But yeah, it was just kind of going back to playing with ink. This paper itself was like leftover scrap pieces from a roll that I got, and I didn't really enjoy the roll of paper that I did have, so I didn't think that was too much harm in just kind of doing ink references. But that's what they are here. I don't even remember what the words were. I think it was like swell or overflow or something like that. So it's like an ocean going over the house here, referencing climate change, I guess. This one I think was drain, and so it's a Final Fantasy Black Mage drain. This one might have something to do with sanity or whatever, because I just I wrote out on a loaf of bread, my sanity right meow, so I don't really know. Who knows, man. This one must have been fragile or something, like strength of, because my teeth are stupid fragile, like, so, yeah, anyway, moving on. I like this one. This was another Inktober thing. I think it might have been Scorpio or something. It's kind of the idea. It's like a scorpion done in like super bare bone geometric triangles. So I thought that was kind of cool. This is another one. I liked that I used the gold ink that I bought there for the clock head there. It was kind of the idea of being on time. It's kind of like the clock is late and he's splashing his coffee while sitting. Because I've done this many times where not only, like I said, I've said several times before, my attendance in school was awful, and I found myself doing this a lot. Like, I'm good about it now in terms of like appointments that I have to be at, but like just the idea of being late, and I thought it was ironic that it was a clock. So who knows? I kind of get a chuckle when I look at this one. I really don't know what I was thinking. It's just a cat in a unicorn costume. I really don't know. I honestly do not know. Do not remember what it was that I was thinking when I made this. I think it must have been really late, but I do think it was on, oh, it was Inktober. It's in ink here, so you can tell like the gold ink and then the blobs of the blue that I had there, but I just thought it was funny. This one here is, there's a carbon block that I bought that I'm going to be using in the future here. There's a carbon block with a bunch of black. There's a carbon block here that's like water soluble, and it can, like, a little bit of it can be erased on the surface. Like, it's pretty, like, it's hard to describe, I guess. I had it somewhere. There was a package that had the description on it, but it's a carbon block that works like graphite, except it's water soluble. I did this and I cut it out and I placed it on here, sort of like, looks sort of like a Genova sort of thing from Final Fantasy VII, I guess, but it was kind of the idea of making it more wooden and rock-like, but it didn't really turn out looking like that, but anyway. So this one here was the time when I was developing some ideas just after I decided to try to do this full-time. Try to develop some ideas based on, you know, what I should do in terms of prints. It was a long haul to be able to get the materials that I needed, and it was exciting to finally be able to print something like this. Here is the original watercolor. It's kind of an insight into my process. Here's the original watercolor sketches that I did real quick. And the idea of just being Ekans and coughing, or Arbok and coughing here, being like coffee and Starbucks instead of Charbok, like the sound he would make in the anime. So here you have just coughing here, saying coffee, and then there's like Starbucks. So I just thought it was funny. But again, I decided not to try to put this one up because, again, it's not my own creation. And I think the Game Freak company is like super strict about their copyright anyway, so I don't even want to try to mess with that. This one here is just a frog. He had like a plant growing out of his back because we ended up getting some planters that were like that, and I was just like, that's cool. But it sort of looks like I tried to paint the plant behind him, but I planted it in his butt and not on his back, so I was like, I'm not going to try to finish this one. But I was kind of going back and trying to see how I could try to incorporate, again, Micron pen on top of watercolor painting, and I like it, but I don't like it at the same time. It's kind of cool to make an illustrative look with Micron pen and watercolor together, but at the same time, I'm at a time where I'm like, I don't know if I should try to just make things realistic one way and then just kind of be illustrative another, so I was just like, I think this one was like conflicting ideas. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I forget what the Pokemon's name is. Tyler and I were playing a lot of Pokemon at the time, and he really liked this one. I think it's Aromatisse or something. I didn't even get around to painting this one. I apologize, but it's just there. It was going to be I think it was going to be the idea around Christmas time where I was going to make a bunch of bulbs and put them on one canvas or whatever, but I decided not to. It was just a whole lot of work for something that I would only just have around here, so I was like, yeah, I don't want to waste the material. So this one, I think it was like a dream I had or something. It was just a lot of... People always have dreams about their teeth or whatever, but I had a dream... People relate it to greed too, but I had a dream where my teeth were just like rocks, and then the rocks broke, and then they were teeth, but they broke too, and it was just, I don't know. So, if anybody knows me, I have like poor genetic structure for my teeth, despite how much I take care of them, and it's terrible. It's terrible. Again, it's like a Christmas bulb. This one has a butterfly kind of frozen. It's like a block of ice rather than glass, and it has like a butterfly frozen inside. I was like having spring fever during like early December. Like as soon as it started getting cold again, I was like, oh, I can't wait for winter. And then it got cold, and I was like, I don't think I can handle winter. And it was actually a very harsh winter for me this year. But yeah, spring fever came into full swing around like January, and I was just like, I had enough of winter already. But now that the warmth is actually here, and warmth being like a rainy, overcast 50-degree day, I'll take that over being like super frozen. Yeah, so this one's, a lot of these I actually did sitting in Barnes & Noble. I was testing out like new paints, new like pan sets that I just kind of was experimenting with, and I found that, I don't know if it's just me, like I like the quality, like I'll use pan sets in the future, I think, in terms of traveling. I think I will, because they're really convenient when you're traveling like that. Like I did them in the coffee shop, I used them in the coffee shop, and I really enjoyed just having a pan set to travel with. But in terms of like me and my professional work, I think I'm going to always use paint out of the tube, just because you can get it to the consistency that you want. It doesn't turn chalky. This is just for anybody that's interested. I noticed that a lot of the pan sets, for me at least, I don't know if I'm using the wrong ones or whatnot, or the way I use them, but I noticed that a lot of them turn really chalky on the surface, and that's a quality that I'm a stickler about. I just don't really think I enjoy them in terms of final works. But so these here, real quick, I don't know how long this video is going to take. I'm going to try to speed it up here for you. With this one here, it's just pieces of Inktober pieces that I did, and then I pieced them together. I didn't want to waste the paper that I used to kind of practice with the ink, so I just created them, or collaged them into pieces that I thought were really interesting. I liked the use of the primaries here, and then just kind of piecing together what almost looks like an organic piece or something. Looks interesting. This is a lot of the gold I experimented with the yellow ink that I used. The yellow ink turned out more orange unless I like super diluted it, so I was like, eh, and so I didn't use a whole lot of the pieces that I used, but this is another one that I collaged together. It's kind of cool. This one was another one that I just did during sitting in the coffee shop. I was listening to a podcast, so I wasn't really too invested in this drawing, I don't think, but again, it was just the idea of looking at different textures and color together. And I think this one, I was sitting in a parking lot waiting, I think I was waiting for Tyler to get out of work, so I didn't really ever get around to finishing this one. And I didn't really think I needed to. I thought it was cool to make a bunch of eyes and stuff, but I was like, I don't think I need to reference any more ugliness at the moment. So I was like, nah, I won't do that. So now I think we're going back to the older projects. A lot of them are just pieces that I wanted to put in here just because I don't really have proper storage at the moment. Like, I don't have any flat files to put anything in for things that I really wanted to keep. And not that this is even like all that amazing, but there are things that I do want to keep that are actually being damaged just by the way that I stored them. And so like the slightest little bit of light that touches a piece of paper is gonna take a white piece of paper and kind of damage it over time, little by little. So I want to actually be able to be more archival with a lot of things that I make. So this is just a matter of like keeping things in one place and hopefully like keeping them safe from exposure of other things, because I even like bent a lot of other pieces of paper that were just like ashamed to bend. So this one here was, I don't think this was Inktober. No, because this is just the watercolor that I experimented with. Just the idea of like an Egyptian cat and an offering. This one I did back in school, back in like 2012, I think. 2012 or 2011. It's just the dunce, the fly. This is one of the first... I think this is where I was discovering that I liked watercolor a lot. It's just a simple flamingo. I won't say too much about these because these are really old and I've said enough about them. This one here is actually a newer one. Playing with hot press paper again and trying to make a wash in terms of... I stopped doing it because it wasn't successful, but I figured I can come back and reference this to remember what mistakes I was making. I blobbed too much pigment in too many spots, and I ended up creating texture that I really didn't want to make because it was supposed to be a sunlit, misty forest. It wasn't supposed to be so dense with the color. It was supposed to be a gentle kind of gray application of color, but I realized that I was working too fast and I blobbed pieces onto the paper that I wasn't supposed to. So that's just a reference for me when I come back and look at these things. This is Copic marker. It's just kind of a quick study. Like, I realized that as much as I enjoy Copic marker, I don't think it's going to be something I explore too much in the future. I do like the idea of using Micron pen and making simple like geometric drawings like this, but for the price point that a lot of Copic markers come at, I don't really think that my artwork is for that. Like, unless I was going to be like making comic books or something, I don't really think I would use these for me, personally anyway. This was another Inktober thing. It was a Guild Wars reference. I don't play that game as much anymore. I don't have a whole lot of time to play video games anymore. It's sad, but this is just Grenth. It's like he's in a soul stream or something, and it was just Copic marker using a select handful of color. I think it was like 4 or 5 colors or something like that. But yeah, it was Inktober around Halloween, so I was like, you know what, why not? This was another Inktober thing. It was Copic marker, I think. I don't know if Copic marker even counts as Inktober, but I mean, I drew out... I'm copying out with this one. For Inktober, I drew out with Micron, and I just basically made a dolphin, and he's singing underwater. Yeah, not much more to say about that. I thought it was cute. So these here are Micron, I think, from my tinted sketchbook. I took them out of there because, again, in the future, if I decide to do a sketchbook tour, I want it to be, you know, newer material. I don't want to have to go through a sketchbook and be like, oh yeah, by the way, this is the old drawing that I did from 2000, you know, like I'm doing with this one. So in the future, it's all going to be like fresh things. So I took things that I enjoyed out of each sketchbook that I used, and I threw it in here for personal reference and to just kind of keep it in one place. So this one here, this is an exciting one for me because I thought I did a really good job in terms of the drawing here. At least I was really happy with it, and it was a model for me to be able to experiment with the production of printing. And with it, I was able to come up with this here. I was able to come up with this sort of print model here, and I ended up wrapping it because it was kind of the first solid print that I made. And so for sentimental purposes, I'm keeping this one. It's not really like meant for sale or anything, but I thought it was a success in terms of the print style that I aspire to do in the future. So at least for like Christmas cards or cutesy little things here. So I hung on to this one because I thought it was pretty cool. And my battery's gonna die here in a second. But yeah, this one's Abra sitting in the park. He's kind of using his telekinesis in his sleep. This one here is the second one. It's kind of an insight onto the stickers that I made. I haven't put them up on my shop at all. I don't know if I will, but they were just kind of an experiment to see if I wanted to do them. I did it with Micron pen on the tinted paper there, and this was the result. It kind of made these blue tinted stickers that I made there. This is One Piece reference, I guess. The Soga King. I remember being so exhausted one night, and I was just like, what's it called? I was like exhausted one night, and I remember watching One Piece because it's an endless story and it never will end ever. But I was binging on it one night, trying to catch up to like a more recent season, and this was one of the characters that developed in there was the Soga King with Usopp. And I watched it in Japanese, and so in my like fatigue and in my like being really stupid tired, I thought this episode was hilarious because he has his own theme song that plays, and so I was just, I don't know, for whatever reason I was compelled the next morning to practice colored pencil onto this paper. Micron pen on top of the tinted paper there. It's kind of just a summer theme. The Kraken with a like pool floaty of a trident and then just grilling out back, and I thought that was pretty neat. This one is kind of a creepy snowman in terms of where the wild things are. I thought it was pretty. I like the idea. I like the quality of the colored pencil on the paper and just kind of putting some pen over the top. I thought it looked pretty nice. This is another Guild Wars character. It's like one of the concept art pieces that they had there during the early development of the game. It's an Ashura. I like the colors of purple and earthy tones coming together. Other than that, not too much to say about it. It was a quick sketch. This was the first sketch that I did inside of the book there. It's kind of the reference of, like, I like exaggerated features and I like elongated features in terms of, like, I kind of always have done this for whatever reason. I just kind of exaggerate certain features and make necks really long. I don't know, I kind of always come back to that in some ways. Like, I just like referencing realism, but then taking it and putting it into something else to kind of say something. So with this one, it's like, again, I don't try to go too deep into what I make, but it's just that generic concept of, you know, people are beautiful in their own right, and then they just kind of morph themselves into being something else and kind of lose a piece of them in the process. So you can see that her lips are like exaggerated forward and kind of, you know, the reference of Botox, I guess. And then you can see her arm there casts a silhouette of just like the depth, like how skinny she is. But I don't know, like I said, I didn't want to reference or be too serious about it, but I don't know. I like the colors that were placed on top of the page. I think the paper itself is really nice for the water, or for the colored pencil there. So it's something that I, again, want to try to pursue in the future, to continue. This one here is another piece of paper that's been glued into the page here. I was going to go back and try to finish this one. It's the acrylic based paint that I used to make the bee painting on the canvas there, except this is on paper, and you can tell that the washes leave behind like a very chalky tray, and so I figured, well, I might as well just kind of paint and make it opaque completely. But then I was like, well, if I use that paint over just a thing to put in my sketchbook, to me it would seem like a waste. So I've been very good about completing projects, like you probably can't tell about based on what's in this book here. I've been pretty good about going back and finishing projects, but I also am trying to balance not wasting material at the same time. So with that in mind, I was gonna I like the idea of trying to sell drawings and just kind of making them super cheap, because it's like, while the drawings do take a long time, like they're just paper or graphite and paper. So I decided against that. I don't know if I will sell drawings in the future. Maybe I will. and not really make them super expensive, maybe. But this one was going to be something I was going to sell, but then I was like, well, I don't really feel too connected with this other than the fact that I like to reference a lot of marble and bronze statue and old, like, Italian statues and stuff, and kind of reference them and twist them into my own material. But I just kind of used it and made something else of it, kind of juxtaposition of making something that comes in one color, like bronze statue comes in one color, or marble statue, and put color on it, but then also how beautiful and pristine something can be, and then just what we can do to it to reference, like, you know, the not only like certain vandalism of, you know, precious things, or just kind of placing our waste on top of something that could be so beautiful and just kind of carelessly ruining something, you know. Not that this work itself in real life has been vandalized, but just the carelessness that we as humans kind of have in terms of not only precious things, but also, like, you know, the environment and just these things that need to be referenced. So real quick, I'm gonna pan through these. I don't want to take too long and explain each one of these. These are literally just cut and pasted out of an old sketchbook that I had, and they're just kind of ideas. So based on what you see here, you can kind of take it in and look at them real quick. They're nothing too spectacular. Again, there's like a mix between pen and ink, pencil, watercolor pencil. There's just kind of like funny little ideas or thoughts that I have in terms of like kind of developing ideas. This one turned into the bluebird painting that I did. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I can show it up on the screen here in a second. Little ideas that I do, like it could just be a simple scribble like this, actually spark like some interest in my mind to make certain things. So that's why I keep these things on hand, I guess. Not that everything is amazing. Like this, I don't even know what this is, but I just kind of take these ideas and I don't know what I'm gonna make until I can sit down and put it on paper. Like some things are so absurd, like Zenyatta being in SpongeBob or something. Like I really don't understand. But these things just come to my mind, and I'm like, you know what? And this was another drawing on Pinterest. It's not my own. A lot of these things in here are not my own. Remember, like I don't take any credit for a lot of these references or like copyrighted material. So this was a quick one here. I was like realizing that I wanted to make like a cutesy sticker at one point of just the poo emoji with like a banana suit on, because, you know, referencing Gwen Stefani, it would be amazing. Just Bananas. It'd be funny. Leviosa, not Leviosa. Guild Wars reference. Literally a scribble, watercolor paper, or of colored pencil. This is kind of the idea of making like, it was around, let's see, 8/1/17, so that was August 2017. Just coming back to drawing just simple figures. That one's just another jar with a fish. I thought this one was kind of cute. This is into the notebook with just the ballpoint pen and the simple paper. The paper is like super thin, but it worked really nice with the ballpoint pen that I used. This is the Cubone that you've seen on Instagram. This was just like a cool little geometric piece. I kind of playing with the idea of practicing more human features. Like I ended up stylizing it in the end because I was using this picture off the internet. It was like just a quick portrait, and it was like super pixelated on my tiny phone screen, and I was just kind of drawing in the parking lot. But this is what came of it. Drop them beats. Got the kazoo. It's a reference to an old project that I did in oil painting class. I think it was like 2012. It's kind of the a fetus with like sort of like the idea of being a star, and I just thought it was kind of a cool concept. The Star is Born. I think I did a YouTube video with this one. This is the moth there that I did. I just kept it in one place. Concepts of, I think this was Inktober too, concepts of Overwatch. A cat with a creepy little shadow puppet behind him. I was kind of referencing here the inks that I was trying to use with this image on top of the very thin paper, so I just stuck with the ballpoint pen. It's kind of the idea of being on a foreign planet, finding creepy little things. And that's about it, guys. There's the reference again. I put at the end here, I finally finished gluing everything together on March 30th, 2019, and I'm just getting around to making this video. I think I've gone on long enough, though. You'll hear more from me in the future. I want to get back to being able to work on things more consistently. I apologize for my absence if you guys have been following me. If you're interested in what I'm doing, I'm going to try to get more into the idea of posting more on my website itself instead of just solely on Instagram, just so I can try to see just how much interest I have in what I do. I thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. This has gone on long enough, and I hope you guys take care and enjoy the coming warmth and season if you're here in the US, so I know I've been dying for some warmth. Again, take care, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.